Good day everyone, I am Dimple Denzel from Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English 2A, and today I will be discussing the topic learners who are gifted and talented, specifically those students who are gifted in visual arts and in music. This topic is under Chapter 3, Typology of Learners with Special Needs. So let's start. What do we mean by learners who are gifted and talented? Gifted learners are those whose potential is distinctly above average in one or more domains, like a child who is gifted in intellectual, who is creative, socially nor physically. They need services and activities not ordinarily provided by the school in order to fully develop their potential. This means that giftedness is within a child's inner pace from the day they were born. Moving on, let us first tackle about the first one, visual arts. According to what I have researched, visual art are the arts that meet the eye and evoke an emotion through expression of skill and imagination. They include the most ancient forms, such as painting and drawing, and the arts that were born thanks to the development of technology, just like sculpture, printmaking, photography, and installation art. In the slide, you can see there are some examples of visual arts. While many people recognize gifted children as those who excel in language, arts, and mathematics, the identification of students with potential or demonstrated talent in the arts has been included in federally legislated definitions of giftedness or talent since 1972. In its definition of the gifted and talented, the government specifies that these children are to be identified by professionally qualified persons as being capable of high performance in visual arts. Unfortunately, neither high performance nor qualified persons are easily defined. However, the recent report from the U.S. Department of Education, National Excellence, a case for developing America's talent in 1993 includes the following definition of students with outstanding talent. First is that children and youth with outstanding talent perform or show the potential for performing at remarkably high levels of accomplishment when compared with others of their age. Experience or environment. These children and youth exhibit high performance capability in intellectual, creative, and/or artistic areas, possess an unusual leadership capacity, or excel in specific academic fields. They require services or activities not ordinarily provided by the schools. Once again, high performance is not defined. In an effort to clarify what high performance means when speaking of children with outstanding talent in the visual arts, this topic of mine will present the findings of research on the behavioral traits and characteristics of visually gifted children's artwork, and on the artistic, perceptual, or cognitive processes of talented students in the arts. On my research, I've found out that there's this study conducted by Marion Porath, a professor emerita in the Department of Educational and Counseling Psychology and Special Education in University of British Columbia, Vancouver. Her research focuses on developmental approaches to giftedness that address the question of the ways in which gifted young artists are the same as or different from their average peers by investigating artistic ability from a developmental perspective. Children in the study produced a drawing which were judged by three practicing artists who are also art educators. Here's an example of a work from the competition. This is a 13-year-old's war sculpture that uses simplicity of line to express movement. As what you can see on the drawing, it is only a simple art by a young artist, but it has more to offer than what meets our eyes. The next photo is a collage by a 12-year-old utilizing the element of composition, which are the texture, shape, placement, patterns, and contrast. However, on the third photo, it shows the drawing of a 13-year-old child inspired by a model from life in a figure drawing class that shows an understanding of proportion and the relationship of wholes to parts. Anyway, let's move forward and know the characteristics of the visually gifted children. There are two sets of characteristics that are associated with visually talented children. First is the behavioral traits, and then the second one is the characteristics of the children's artwork. Well, it is not likely that a child will have all the characteristics that will be shown, but a child who possesses special talent in art will probably exhibit many or even most of them. Now, children's behavioral traits. First is the early evidence. This means that children who are gifted in art usually begin young. Talent is evidenced at an early age, usually through drawing. Mostly, we can witness that a child that is gifted will possess his or her talent at an early age, right? Now, the second one is emergence through drawing. When we say emergence through drawing, this means that drawing dominates for several reasons that a child can see on his or her surroundings, like the accessibility of the media, because it can convey detailed information about a subject. The third one is rapidity of development. This conveys that the gifted child often traverses the stages of visual development at an accelerated pace. Next is extended concentration, which visually gifted children stay with an art project longer than the other children, and they see more possibilities in the task they have selected or been assigned. Next is self-directedness. Visually gifted children are often prefer drawing to other forms of entertainment and have the drive to work on their own. The next one is possible inconsistency with creative behavior. Although risk-taking is a characteristic typically associated with creative people, gifted students are often hesitant to experiment in a new area if they have achieved a certain level of mastery in a medium. Now, the seventh behavioral trait is fluency of idea and expression. From middle elementary age on, visual and conceptual fluency is a particularly significant characteristic because it is closest to the behavior of a trained artist. The last one is calculating capacity. This term was coined by Howard Gardner. This means that a child has a superior ability to utilize past information in new contexts. For instance, a visually gifted child who has achieved a certain level of mastery in figure drawing can use that ability to render figures in other situations. Moving on, let's find out the second characteristic, and this is the characteristic of the children's artwork. Introducing the first one, verisimilitude. Children gifted in art develop the desire and the ability to depict people and other subjects from their environment at an early age than other children. The second one is compositional control. These are the elements of composition, color, space, and movement that are handled with greater sensitivity by a visually gifted students. The third one is complexity and elaboration. This conveys that intellectual development is connected to the ability to relate information and observations about objects. Sensitivity to detail and the use of memory are directly related to complexity and elaboration. The next one is memory and detail. It tells us that even young gifted children are interested in detail and are more inventive in their drawings and sculptures than other children. The next one is sensitivity to art media. The visually gifted child is more likely to explore and experiment with media and achieve technical control, which results in a more elegant finished product. This is especially noticeable from upper elementary age on. And the last one is random improvisation. Doodling and improvising with the effects of lines, shapes, and patterns are a favorite activity of the visually gifted child. We can witness that gifted child uses her ability to invent, depict, and describe to create meaning. The next that I will introduce to you all are the artistic thinking skills of students with artistic talents that exhibits above average ability in artistic, perceptual, or cognitive processes. Now, the first one is perceptual discrimination. This is the ability to perceive and differentiate through the senses with acute awareness. Perceptual discrimination, artistic knowing begins with fine-tuned sensory awareness. Young visual artists view the world with acuity, aware of dimensions of space, color, and textures, unseen by those who simply look. The second one is meta-perception. This is the ability of a child to perceptualize things, the perceptual or cognitive process of internally manipulating perceptions with expression. Metaperception is the artistic parallel to metacognition, a term used to describe mental monitoring and cognitive thinking. This artistic knowing or intelligence has been referred to as thinking with an aesthetic sense, qualitative responsiveness, or qualitative intelligence. And then the next one is creative interpretation. This is the process of reworking and refining metaperceptive decisions, resulting in a unique personalized statement. As a student works metaperceptively through an art medium, the artistic interpretive process ultimately unfolds. The more the student reworks and refines her work in the arts, the more artistic the interpretation. That's all for the visual arts. Now let's move on to music. What is music? Music is a pleasant sound which is a combination of melodies and harmony and which soothes you. Music may also refer to the art of composing such pleasant sounds with the help of the various musical instruments. A person who knows music is a musician. When talking about children who are gifted in music, any children has a wide range of abilities, and each child presents a unique challenge in terms of the best way to reach their maximum learning potential regarding music. We may be wondering, how are we going to identify a child that is musically gifted? Today, we're going to answer that question as I will present to you 6 of the most important and reliable signs of innate musical talent in children. Children that at an early age exhibit above average musical potential. Here are the 6 signs that a child is musically gifted. The first one is you often catch the child humming or singing a tune they heard before. Musically gifted children will often sing or hum a melody that they had heard somewhere earlier. Their brain seems to be especially good at absorbing and remembering musical information, and they derive a lot of pleasure from recreating it for themselves as well. Famous contemporary piano virtuoso Evgeny Kazin used to hum to himself songs that he had heard his sister practice on the piano. This is one of the most powerful indicators of innate musical talent. The second to remember is the child appears to notice when an instrument is out of tune or a song is played in the wrong key. Parents of talented musicians often recall this as being the first time they became aware of their child's aptitude for music. Something that sounds completely normal to your ears will sound very different to a musically gifted child. This is an example of heightened sensitivity to sound that only someone with above average musical talent will display. Such children most likely have what musicians call perfect pitch, which is an ability to correctly identify a note immediately upon hearing it. The third one is the child tends to spend extensive periods of time fiddling around on a musical instrument. For musically gifted children, a musical instrument can be like a magnet. They seem to derive endless pleasures from trying out different notes and simply experimenting with sound, often spending hours on end on this task without losing interest. In many cases, they might even be able to accurately recreate a piece of music they had heard before on the instrument. This is a very strong sign of musical talent. Now, the next one to remember that a child is musically gifted is if a child often talks about music or asks to listen to a music. This is unquestionably true, right? If the child often begs to turn on the radio or to play their new favorite song on the phone, musically gifted children tend to get more stimulation from music than from any other activity available to them, which is a strong indication of a musical talent. And while listening to music is not the same as creating it, you definitely want to give a child like this a chance to learn an instrument. Moving on the fifth sign is if a child can identify a song after hearing only a few notes. While this ability isn't that uncommon, it does indicate a degree of musical awareness that does not come automatically to everyone. Children with this ability alone might not necessarily fall under the category of musically gifted, but they definitely have strong musical potential. Now, the last and finally the sixth one is if a child seems to have a natural and effortless understanding of rhythm. Rhythm, as we all know, is an essential component of music, and people who don't have it often complain of being very poor musicians and dancers. Children with a strong sense of rhythm will often move in time with music or be able to clap or tap their foot to the beat without thinking about it. So, these are just 6 of the signs that a musically gifted child may possess. It is important that we know even just a few to understand or stand a child's point of view. Above all, the most important thing to show is respecting them and encouraging them more. That is all for my report. Now, the gorgeous Miss Erica Villaret will continue the third and the fourth talent of a gifted child. Thank you, and I hope you have gained something from my report. God bless to us all.